So today we finally launched Zogo, which is a, thank you, thank you, thank you, which is a shell on top of Godot. So we took the Godot engine and we rewrote almost all of the UI to be iPad first. And I'm going to show you three of the principles that sort of evolve over time. At the beginning, we thought we're just going to do, we're going to put Godot on the iPad. And it worked within a week. Within a week, we had something that worked. Within a couple of weeks, we had programs running. And that was 18 months ago. So we learned a lot along the process. And I want to share some of the things that that we learned during this process. So the first thing is that while we had the application running very quickly within a couple of weeks, it was not a great experience. And as avid iPad users, we really wanted to have something that was comparable to the kind of software that Apple puts out for the device. I like to joke that I am doing this so I can get myself an Apple Design Award. I am hoping. So I went through a process of looking at every Apple app and copying the colors and I mean, I've done so much pixel copying of some of their apps just to make sure that we got the same, some of the UI and some of the experience, and I'll show some of those things today. But that was very clear from the beginning that this was not going to be an easy job, that it was not going to be just getting Godot running in a couple of weeks. We were going to redo the whole shell. The second thing, and that was sort of something that developed over time, is as we were getting more comfortable with Godot on the iPad, we started to notice that Godot has a lot of the elements of an open source project. So there's a lot of organic growth in the way that Godot has evolved, but also a lot of the work that goes into Godot is done by people that master Godot. So people that know Godot, know what they're doing, and know all the relationships. Like what is a resource, what gets attached to what, how do you do those nodes, when does a mesh go, is the rigid body attached to the node, or is the node attached to the rigid body, and so on. So what, it reminds me of a phrase of Atwood, and the phrase is, we need to help users fall on the pit of success. So what you want to do is you want to make things very easy by default for people, right? And you want to have good defaults so whatever they do is the right thing. And if they want to shoot themselves in the foot, you still have to offer the capabilities. And Godot has those capabilities. So you can certainly shoot yourself in the foot. But we wanted to make it, by default, easy to use. And like Joseph said, unlike PowerPoint that allowed me to make this shitty presentation. And finally, the other thing one of the concepts that I really enjoy from people that do UI design, and the Swift language actually embraces this as a design principle, is called progressive disclosure. And the idea is that you should begin with something very simple that people can grasp and be productive with, and then over time develop some experience. And the canonical example is a camera. Most people get a point and shoot camera, and you learn point and shoot, it's okay. And over time, as you get better, you learn to maybe use exposure, or maybe use aperture, or maybe use filters and things like that. And the idea is that as you get better, you master the tool, and you can do wonders, but there's a long learning process. And what we want is for people to be successful from the get-go, in particular in the iPad, where we're going to have little kids using this. So we want people to be productive from the get-go. And in fact, one of those moments was when my son, I'll show you, let me stop talking and show you directly what I mean. So I'm going to launch Godot, and I'll show you what happened with my son. So, whoa. How do I get this? Oh, okay. So I just launched Godot. This is our project launcher. This is similar to project launcher that you folks have seen for Godot on the desktop, but it is using Apple's idioms. The same sort of thing, right? We have these are the projects I have created. Some of them I'm going to show you today. This is the Learning Center. We've added a bunch of different samples that we curated. So we found some good samples from the community. We put them here, and we're highlighting a handful of these just for people to get started. And in fact, I should not say that. That anecdote, we don't want to upset the approvers. Anyways, So I'm just going to get started with a new project, so a demo. And this is launching Godot. So now this is very familiar. You've probably seen this on Godot on the desktop, some of the same user interface elements, right? So you have, in the iPad, we don't have a lot of space. So we have to constantly hide and show these things, which is not the same thing as the desktop where you can't really do that. Where you have so much space that you can have everything on the screen. On the iPad, we have to hide and show those things. Now, this is the moment where, so I'm going to create now a 3D scene. And in this 3D scene, I'm going to add a node. Now, I was very proud of the UI. I showed this UI 6 months ago. So let me show you what I showed 6 months ago, which was this thing. So this is the UI where the same thing that you see in Godot. We try to keep many of the idioms from Godot so that you can get productive here. But you have a view hierarchy of every possible node, and you have to, and you essentially have to pick things by knowing what the object-oriented hierarchy of your thing is, right? Or you might know, for example, tile map. It's there and you can find it. But you gotta know. You gotta be already know. It's like, oh, I need a 3D node, but it's actually that 3D node. It's actually, I want the CSG version. I want the, I don't know what CSG stands for. It's computer solid. That. So you gotta know this is what you want to do. But we decided that we didn't want. So what happened one day is my son was playing with Roblox. He was building a level in Roblox, and he came and showed me his creation and said, "Dad, can you help me with a script?" I was like, "Sure, I can help you. ChatGPT is gonna do this for me." And then he shows me this impressive level, like, "Oh my God, how do you do this thing?" It's like very easy. Just click here. Ta, 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 ta. He has a bunch of blocks, right? I was like, oh, because in Godot you gotta create a mesh, and then you gotta go to the material, and then you gotta create a material, and then you choose a color material or a standard material, and then once you have the standard material, you scroll down to albedo or something like that, and then you pick a color. Albedo is the color, right? And I was like, oh, this is no bueno. The what? Then if you do collisions, is you're gonna attach the collision, then you're gonna attach the shape to the collision, and there's opinions if you ask ChatGPT or the internet whether one goes on top of the other. So we decided that we want to do something different. So what we do is that when you create the plus sign, we wanted to essentially get people on this idea of the pit of success. So when you add this thing, well, right now it remembers the last thing that you did, but it defaults to the current node. So right now I had a node 3D, except now I had a written, but it will show you nodes that matter for 3D. So we went and sort of organized things, and I said, what would make sense for people to use? And I organized them in this way. The other thing that I did is I gave prominence to the mesh. And I understand that professionals don't really do this. Professionals will get a professional model and will put a professional model and will drag it from the sidebar. But for folks like my kid that just wanted to get some things on the screen and start shooting at things or maybe bouncing around things, I wanted to give them something more like this. And and here we did another thing. So I'm going to add a torus here just because it's a fancy shape. So when I tap add, for this particular set of objects, the meshes and the computer, the CSGs, whatever it meant, I can just add it as a mesh renderer. Okay, maybe I should use a better wording, right? But I can add it just as a mesh renderer or as a rigid body or as a static body. And I am following the guidance of my friend James that said, this is how you do it. This is the right thing. Don't do it the other way. So whatever he said we should do, that's what we did. So I'm going to add it that way. And maybe let me add another one. Let me add another one so you can see. So James suggested, and maybe they'll correct you. I'm going to do a rigid body. So this is what we did. We added the mesh under the rigid body. Oh, okay. Sounds good. So what else was I going to show about this little guy? All right. For this to actually run on a scene, we actually also need a camera. So let me add a camera. Let me add a camera here. And let me drag the camera out so you can see it. And now we're going to go to the inspector. And okay, you can see the donut. Let me take the donut, and what do I do with this donut? Can I rotate it? So where's my camera? There's my camera. Oh, okay. God damn it. Okay, there's my camera, and then, all right, that's sort of visible. And then I can hit play on this little guy, select current scene. Oh, I gotta save this thing. The what? Oh, I need to add lights. All right, well, it's run. Yeah, oh yeah, it looks terrible. So we need to add some lights here. So another thing that we did with Godot is there's way too many options in Godot, which I think is very good for the professional people that have been developing Godot. But I have a very different audience in mind, right? The kid with the $300 iPad, it's on discount this week. You should get it. It's on discount. And so we had to remove a lot of things, and things that I actually spent a lot of time going through GitHub, finding things, who suggested the feature, how many people were using the feature, was discussed extensively, or was some guy just said, yes, looks good. So I removed the things that just got messages like it looks good to me. So, and my philosophy is somebody will complain, and if somebody complains enough, we'll put it back in. But essentially, and the reason is, you can't read that, but if I switch the display, you'll see that toolbar barely fits. So this is already a shrunk version of the toolbar. I already had to shrink a lot of things. You'll see it in things, for example, like the snap options that I had to put in here, and I had to move them away. But so I already had to put everything on a diet. So I'm going to put a light. I'm going to add the light. I'm going to add the environment. And then if I play it, okay, now we can actually something decent in there. Then the other thing that we did, or that people are expected to do, is, for example, they want to have. Let me add it to the Torus mesh. I'm gonna add a little script so you can do things to this thing, and I'm just gonna rotate this thing, and I'm not very good at this, so delta multiply by rotation dot y. Does that make sense? Godot people?
It will spin out there.
The camera is in the mesh, so it's spinning the camera too, so you won't see it.
Oh. Okay, so how do I fix this?
Drag the camera out.
All right, so I get this puppy here. Okay, and now this is gonna run. Oh! I don't think that was rotating. I think that was the rigid body falling off. So we really, so.
It's okay.
Okay, you got the idea. I did not rehearse with a rigid body. That is true. That is true. That is true. Now let me show you another. But are we in a rush? Yeah. Well, let me show you another one of my favorite features. Joseph doesn't know about this one, but one thing that really bothers me about these professional tools is that adding an image is very difficult, and Roblox had this thing, so you can just pick a file, and it just adds it there. I know it's a simple thing, but it's like I was always like, what do I do? Is which mesh is, and where does it? And then is the texture, and then I could never remember. So we just did a bunch of little things like that. The other thing that I did, also Joseph doesn't know about this one, but I think that I did this one for text. So when you add a label, can you tell or not? Godot people, the more senior of the Godot people know that in Godot, you just get, yeah, and then you gotta figure out what it is. So anyways, I went through every label and I put some text in there because it's like I could never find anything. All right. What else? What I want to cover here before I move on? I think that's it, right? I think that's what it is. The what? Now, I forget. How do I get back to my presentation? No. How do I go back? No, but it was Alt Tab until now. Oh, how do I? Oh, okay. Woof, woof. Okay. So this took us 18 months, and I make it sound like we knew what we were doing from the beginning. But the reality is that we thought we were going to ship within 6 months of starting. It's like, how hard can it be? And it reminded me of this quote that I saw online. And you know, every day I'm reminded of that because you know it seems like I keep picking these projects that I figure how hard can it be, and it's like, oh God, what have I done? But no, more seriously, we did a preview of Zogo in GodotCon in October last year. We presented this, and we thought we're almost done. Couple bugs to fix, and we're gonna do a test flight because that's what responsible people do. You'll do a test flight, you get some beta testers, people try it out, they tell you what's wrong. And oh, what happened? I don't know. What did I do? That swap displays. And how do I go there? Okay, so I thought we're feature complete. Let's ship this thing. And the problem is that, like I said, we're gonna run a few tests, see what people thought. This is gonna be rock solid, of course, because I use Swift, which means that there's no bugs in your code. But it turns out that we did get over 2,000 users during this period. So people signed up for this thing. They get a beta review before it gets published in the App Store. And surprisingly, we got hundreds of feature requests. So we launched this. We were around bug 600, and we used bugs for every single feature in this thing was tracked with a bug. And we were around bug number 600 when we shipped, and we had maybe 50 or 60 open at the time. And right now we're at 1,400, right? So people submitted a ton of feature requests, a ton of bugs, tons of crashes, and it was a beast, right? So we've been fixing bugs nonstop since October, which is fascinating. So we think that is really, really solid. That said, there were two things that were very important, and this is what happened after the review. There was a ton of things where people said, this is good, but you gotta do more in these areas, right? So we did some of that. But the most important thing is that a lot of people, the majority is not only is like, hey, can you do this feature for me? It's like, yeah, sure, we'll do whatever to make some people happy. So we did a lot of features just to keep people happy, right? And this is an idea from Kathy Sierra. She wrote a book called Badass Users. And in her book, what she says is what you gotta do is you gotta empower your developer so that they become the hero of the story, right? So every time that somebody sent a feature request, we thought about it in terms of, is this something that is gonna make him the hero of his story, right? So we took all of that feedback and we started implementing all these things one by one. And it's kind of a Bible that Justin and I share, Kathy Sierra's book. And but a lot of it was like, hey, the iPad UI is great, but there's a bunch of clunky pieces in the app, a lot of clunky pieces. And it turns out that the clunky pieces were these 4 areas. There's more, but these were the ones that people run the most in. Like the first thing that people came up was like, hey, the shader editor, you have this funky editor, it's on the bottom, it doesn't really work well on the iPad, it doesn't really track well with the iPad. That's an iPad thing entirely. So I was not psyched about it, but we had to do something about it. Then the sprite animations, turns out a lot of people had that and they wanted to deal with that. And again, the sprite animations had this embedded input and then it popped up the display and then everything went offside and you couldn't really use it very well. The animations editor, same thing, the live editing of that thing. And then it's really not intended for touch, right? So with touch, one thing that is really nice about the iPad is you touch it and then you drag a finger and it zooms in or zooms out so you can pan. And in fact, there's a great app on, well, there's a bunch of great apps, but Procreate Dreams, it's a fantastic app for a video animation that has a timeline, very similar to the animation timeline in Godot. I was like, great source of inspiration. Then Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, they both have very good ways of managing animation, so we took a lot of ideas from them. And finally, tile sets and the tile map layer editor. We had to rewrite. And I finally did the audio one just because it looked pretty. And Logic Pro has this beautiful display, so I just copied pixel by pixel. So here, I want to show you a few of the things that we did for, okay, let me show you a few of these things. So let me go back to my demo. I want to show you a couple of the things that we did in terms of walking people through what to do. So you'll notice when you go to the debugger that in Godot, you typically get the debugger and a bunch of things are deactivated. With SwiftUI, it's very easy to just hide that stuff and instead give people some breadcrumbs as to what they can do. And we use this idiom of the breadcrumbs in a lot of places. Like, for example, here, we detect that the project has no animations, so we say, hey, we can create an animation for you. And we'll get back to it in a second. Or the shader editor, we can create a shader for you, or we can open an existing shader. I think that we're running short on time. Okay, so I'm not going to do the shader, but I'm going to show you, I want to show you animations. But we did in a bunch of these places things where we left breadcrumbs so that people knew what to do. Like, for example, I wanted to show you the tile map. Anyways, like with tile maps, I was very confused as to how to do tile maps and how to manipulate tile maps and things like that. And what we do is like, when you create a tile map, the first step is like, well, maybe you want a tile set. If you don't have one, we'll help you do one. So you put a tile set. And when you have the tile set, it's like, well, now you want to move to the tile map, you can start drawing, right? So we kind of steer people in the right direction. So here, what I wanted to show you is this animation. So I'm right now I'm the smoke puff scene. And if there's a couple of things, you can either create a new animation player or open an existing animation player. So this is what our animation thing is, and it's very nice for the touch. And you can just play it from here, and you can control this little guy, right? So it's the same stuff in Godot, but we switch a lot of the attention into being touch friendly, the controls being a lot larger. I talked about that in the previous session. Like when I first designed this thing, it looked great on Xcode. It looked beautiful on Xcode. It was like perfect, but it was very thin, right? And then when I tried to use it for the first time, like a month into the process, like, oh God, this is unusable, right? Like your finger could not even touch it. So I had to, I had to go and change all the sizes because it looks beautiful in Xcode, but the moment that you actually use it on the device, you can't actually touch any of these things. Then we added this cute element. This I borrowed from what's it called? Logic Pro, I think. So you have this little toolbar here at the bottom where you create the nodes in your animation, or you can navigate these ones there. So all of this taken from Apple. Now this sample, this is the RoboBlast sample. I should have opened here, but this is the RoboBlast sample the folks have seen, and I just want to show you that we also brought the Godot 4.4 feature where we can run the game in here. So let me hide that thing. Another thing, we showed this one before at the previous GodotCon, but we have this iOS virtual controller. So if you don't have a physical controller attached, it will show that. But if you have an Xbox controller paired to your device, it would automatically pick that up. So I can, I can go and do little things here. Anyways, you guys have played this before, and this asshole is gonna shoot me. But I think that I think I'm almost done with time. But one last thing that we did that we thought would be very interesting, particularly for kids, right? We want people to be the hero of the story. So James implemented this export game functionality, right? So you fill this up, you type build and upload, and I hope the Wi-Fi doesn't do a thing on me. But this does the Godot packaging and then uploads it to the website. We did a couple of changes to the WASM exporter. So because our target is mostly mobile, so we added like a virtual controller. And I think we're upstreaming those changes. We can. Well, we should. Anyways. But the idea is essentially that now if you have a kid and you have a game, now you can share with other people. It's not exactly Roblox, but at least you can share with your friends. And we'll host the code for 30 days, I think. We'll figure, if the build is not too expensive, we'll host it forever. But this opens on WebAssembly, so our Android friends, the less privileged among us that still use PCs or are forced to use other devices that are not Macs, they can use this thing. But anyways, so that's it. I don't know how to get back.
You can click on the precedent the previous Godot. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. All right, so we're 4.4 based. I just wanted to say one thing. 4.4 is amazing, incredible. The work that everybody did in Godot is fabulous. We are taking advantage of metal-based renders, but we still provide Vulkan as a fallback for people that still have code base that relies on that. And I wanted to say something else. Oh, yes, and we did learn a very important lesson. So we were trying to track Godot very closely, right? So we have to do a lot of massaging to the Godot code base to run on iPad, to run multiple instances. And we were trying to track Godot very closely, but we discovered that the first release, like the 4.4 release, was very rough on the iPad. So we learned our lesson. So I think that our plan going forward is going to be to track Godot on test flight. So be very, follow very quickly. But we're going to wait until we find all the bugs before we publish to the App Store, right? So that's, and I had a chart of the, actually, I might have the chart somewhere. Should I not show it?
You can't go find it.
Let me see, do I have it somewhere? Anyways, I don't think we have time. I had a lot of other things. Yeah, oh, there it is. Oh, no, okay. So I have more slides. We're not gonna have, honestly, the other slides were ideas that we wanted to show, but it's like, nobody cares. So we took them out. So you're not missing anything, but you can tell the moment where we landed the 4.4 support. I was like, oh, oof. Oh. So anyways, we learned our lesson. We do need to get, and the majority of those things were just a race condition that was introduced. So anyways, it got fixed, but we're probably not going to be tracking Godot at the very moment. We're going to let it simmer until point 1 release. So anyways, thank you for coming.